Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me and tuning into OpenDoors.LA. I am your writer and host, Ethan Cancula, and today I'm joined with Ryan Celsius. Ryan Celsius, man, what's going on?
Hey, not much, man. It's a pleasure to be doing this interview, man. I don't
Mhm.
really show my face or jump on camera too often, but I love what you guys are doing, man. So I gotta talk to you about what I'm doing and lo-fi hip hop and the different underground genres and just answer any questions that you guys got for me, man. So
Cool.
that's my vibe right now.
Cool.
You
Yeah,
know.
man. Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us. And even though, we get the gloves and the cool t-shirt, man, it's enough just having you in our presence. So thank you. I want to talk a little bit about this thing that you're self-proclaimed to be, this aesthetic deity. What is that? What does that mean to you? What is, how do you claim that?
I mean, it's just a side effect of really at the time vaporwave culture. At the time, I was really deep into a lot of the vaporwave stuff that was coming out. We're talking the early 2010s, really Bloodwave and all of that, and I felt like I was alone completely in that aesthetic and everything. There wasn't a lot of chatter or talk about it or anything. I thought it was something that was almost defunct in a way, but through actually listening to a lot of that and just being involved in making a lot of album covers for vaporwave artists and things, and kind of being underground in that community for a long time, the aesthetic deity sort of idea and concept was just something that I felt was very interesting. I felt like I could, with my creations visually, really add a lot to production and things like that that vaporwave artists were trying to do. Because the culture of those artists was very much, beyond sample heavy. It was almost, I would say, patronizing in a way to sampling. It was ironic and all these different weird things. And I thought the aesthetic deity title was sort of ironic in that same way. What would the person at the top of the vaporwave corporate hierarchy, be called, that type of thing. That's sort of a remnant from the days when I was really hyped up about vaporwave, early vaporwave, vapor trap, and
Mhm.
the subsequent shoot-offs of that I was involved in, mainly things like Simpson Wave and things like that.
Sure,
For
sure.
a
And
long time, and yeah.
how has that kind of influenced these vapor waves, from, 10 years ago, to where your music is now? Are you still like going back there and pulling from, those places and, that feeling, or is this kind of like you've kind of separated yourself from all of that?
No, not at all. I mean, I think I don't like the idea of separation at all. I think that's usually a side effect of everyone else's influence on you as an artist or as a creator of any type, or sometimes your own, you're tired of a genre and you want to move on. That happens, but a lot of times I witness artists, that feeling comes from external. A lot of times people really do just love a particular thing and they
Mhm.
love it to death, but they know that, oh well, everyone else won't take it the same way. I need to adapt, whatever the case. And I'm not putting any sort of judgment on that. It's a complex decision, really. But I think that's what happens a lot. But for me, I still love a bunch of different genres. If you go back to my channel 2013, 2014, I had dubstep on there. I actually didn't even have any hip hop artists, not hip hop artists, any rap. There was no rap whatsoever, no vocal rap whatsoever until 2016 on the channel.
Mhm.
So I went through a lot of different phases, but I never forgot any of them. So at this point, I feel like I'm just combining everything together. So vaporwave stuff, I'm combining with funk. I'm combining that with lo-fi hip hop. I'm adding in experimental, what I call experimental bass music, which is like post dubstep EDM trap stuff, where you got people doing ridiculous bass slides mixed with grimy Memphis 808s and stuff like that. So for me, it's just all adding together, and I can pull from anything at any time. And I think that's what it's really all about. But I think people get lost in the sauce and they forget that, you know, more stuff you access and that you get from music, the more music you experience, the more options you have, the more ideas you should have. It shouldn't be, I need to stay in my lane that I'm creating in my own mind. It should be, do whatever the fuck you want. Some people are gonna like it, some people are gonna hate it, some's gonna make money, some's not gonna make money,
Mhm.
you know. but at the end of the day, you won't have any sort of regrets about it. So that's kind of just how I operate. And when I work with other artists, I try to impress upon them, that type of thing for their mental health, not for their business side and all that, but just for their health as an artist, to stay in the game, so to speak. So that's my feelings on
Sure.
sort of past, yeah,
Sure, sure. And this idea of separation can be such a hard thing, right? Because sometimes, the thing that you love most might be hurting you, right? So there might be times where you want to separate, or, maybe there's times where you think separation is a good thing, but you really need to go deeper. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And so I love that you're going there, and you're finding those things that you can, pull, deeper into, right? Instead of
yeah,
separating, you have these different categories, and you're like, what if we throw a little bit of this and then maybe this? Next thing you know, you got this like stew, right? This stew of, music that is unique, new and unique, and, becomes its own thing, because you're not separating, which I think is dope. And talking about how you haven't had a lot of like rap vocals on your music until, either recently or, back in 2016. That's kind of been a new thing, I think, for lo-fi music, is adding, these vocals over an already dope hip hop track, right? That's kind of been the thing, at least in mainstream rap. One of my favorite artists is Chance the Rapper, and on his new album that came out, he used a lot of lo-fi beats, and I haven't seen that from a lot of, mainstream really popular artists kind of like take its own direction of like, what if we threw, these lyrics over these popular familiar beats, and we somehow could mix that in, you know what I mean? And so that's what I'm seeing from your, your new record, which I would love to hear about, which is, trapping in Japan. Have you ever been trapping in Japan? What does that even mean, dude?
Well, traveling to Japan, I mean, for me, a lot. So the mix series, I would say, all traveling to Japan. My main priority with that was to start creating underground mixes. That really showcased, like you're saying, you never heard something like the Chance the Rapper over, effectively like lo-fi. I know which tracks you're talking about as well. I can't recall the names in the moment, but I think that and for me, trapping in Japan, it represented an opportunity for me to showcase people that no one fucking with. You know what I mean? In my mind, like only stuff that was super, super rare to me. So, for example, the first one that I put out in like 2016, I had heard, there's somebody I knew, his name's Emotional Tokyo, and he deserves credit for, in my mind, creating one of the first funk mixes that was actually big and recognized. Up until that point, there was no, mixtapes on YouTube that showcased that type of music in any meaningful way that did any type of numbers. You know what I mean? Like maybe something had 10,000 views, but this was doing extremely well and showcased such good music. So I talked with him and we talked about funk a little bit, and then that's when I decided, okay, tracking in Japan should be created, because
Sure.
I feel like a lot of the elements that I was using from the vaporwave stuff I was doing at the time, like the Simpson wave stuff at the time, it was heavily Japanese influence, and vaporwave sort of not the joke, but there's a concept of like Japanese and characters and Japanese sort of things were futuristic. A CD covered these Japanese texts and surreal corporate imagery. That's like a futuristic thing. And so I took those sort of themes and applied it to this chopped and screwed funk music. And then I sort of juxtaposed those two things because I felt like that really conveyed several layers of nostalgia. Because you have a track that has a sample from some OJ song, for example, one of the first tracks, and then you have that's laid over with a Big Sean vocal, and then that's slowed down, and then you have this imagery of a calming beach in Japan, and that combination of nostalgia from different standpoints creates something bigger than the parts of itself, the parts
Yeah,
itself.
and
So
because it's so new, but it seems so familiar. You know what I mean? And I
right,
think the experience for the listener, can be really surreal, right? Because it's almost like I've heard this before. you haven't
Right,
heard
right,
this before. You know what I mean? And that,
exactly.
yeah, then that can kind of create, this vibe, when you're listening to music, which might make you feel good, And so, something
Oh
that you
yeah,
talked about, with Vice, in a Vice article not too long ago was how a lot of this started, and how a lot of like your music had started with the fact of Toonami, right? Toonami,
right, yeah.
Adult Swim, they were using like lo-fi tracks for like 9 seconds. It was like the little like Adult Swim,
The bumps,
the
yeah.
like the little bump about like some information that might be like a hilarious joke or something, and then cut to commercial. And they were using these beats that no one really had a name for at the time. This was back like 2009, 2010, and even now today, it's still happening. And now I think it's being showcased in a different light. So
Yeah.
people are ready to go back to that, and people are ready to get that feeling for a little bit longer, and that might take them to a different place. And so there you have, a lot of the lo-fi music that you're making.
Yeah, yeah, I think definitely. I think the main thing is just the mainstream catching up. In the hip hop sort of the underground communities, everyone knows what it is. During that time, even people understood like, okay, that's an MF Doom beat, that's Dilla, that's all these other cats, DJ Peanut Butter Wolf, all these guys. They're putting out this sort of underground hip hop music with these chill beats, and the sampling was just so creative at the time. It was inspirational, and to have Adult Swim combine that with this anime, which at the time was new,
Hmm.
new to the
New to
U.S.
the
audience.
Western culture. Oh, for sure.
Right, right.
For
I
sure.
hadn't
For
seen
sure.
Cowboy Bebop before. I
Mhm.
hadn't seen Outlaw Star, Trigun. The most one of the Cowboy Bebop, sorry, the most influential in terms of the music side, but um, obviously Samurai Champloo, which
Mhm.
introduced the
Mhm.
world to, or the Western world to Nujabes, Fat John, the Ninja Tune guys, and so at that time, to me, Ninja Tune and those guys, they were creating what is commonly known now as probably experimental, lo-fi hip hop. More similar to like more similar to something like Flying Lotus. You wouldn't say Flying Lotus is a lo-fi artist, but you would say he's a producer that could obviously generate incredible lo-fi beats, but also incredible plays on that. You know what I mean? Incredible hip hop. Outside the lo-fi tag, hip hop in general. So um, that's kind of how I feel about that. Overall. Yeah.
Cool, cool. And so, have you ever been to Japan? Because I know that you even had a track like named Tokyo, right? Which obviously comes from having experience with this artist that was also named Tokyo, and you mixing with their
No,
tracks
no.
and stuff.
That Tokyo track, that's actually by a friend of mine, Young Toppo. So Young Toppo, to me, maybe about 3, 4 years ago when I found him on SoundCloud, he was producing just incredible fire. To me, I was stunned that he had maybe 2 followers, or some crazy low number. And so I was like, well, I need to put this guy on. I
Hmm.
need to make videos. I need to put them in the playlist. I need people to know because they're missing out on the shit he's creating, and he's not really getting the credit he deserves. He's sitting there. He has more tracks than he has followers.
Hmm.
And he's just working constantly. And so I get to know him, and I talk to him, and he's not even in a good situation whatsoever. At the time he was in Venezuela, and there at the time their government was completely, it still is kind of upside down, but it was in the midst of that,
Hmm.
right? And so his situation is less than good. He only has power maybe 10 hours of the day or something like that, and he's producing albums. you know
That's amazing, amazing,
he's
and
producing albums, and so the
mhm,
credit for that track is all him. He produced and mixed that. Like, I never have to go and remix something or master something that he's done. It's just a matter of getting him the resources he needs to be able to do that, and kind of pushing him forward. So that track now immediately as I started the record label, Ryan Celsius Sounds, across all platforms, he's definitely one of the guys I went to first and said, hey, this record label, this is a way that we can generate real money for you. You don't have to worry about all this stuff, and you could operate at your highest potential. And so that's the story behind that track and that artist as well. So there's a whole lot going on with that in general, but I
mhm.
say that to say that. Oh,
And
go
then
ahead.
and I know for you of like you coming up as just a a bedroom artist, right? And I know that's something that you always wanted was, to either have have a platform where you can share, share music, and
Right.
also bring people up, and also creating, a record label. And you've done both, right? Which is really cool. So what is this like for you to have, now to be a part of a record label and a large leading platform, and are you leading this in the direction that you wanted to when you first had this idea maybe a couple of years ago?
Well, I mean, the thing is, I went through a lot of switches. I got no problem changing my mind when I see there's a better idea. But for the longest time, my whole concept was, I'm just a guy. I'm not a company. I'm not a brand. I'm not a label. Just check out this music. It's great. I'm just an individual. I really prided that because I felt like I had a disdain almost for the, how do you say, influencer culture
Hmm.
or a person being a brand. I felt like there was something about that that was very just lame to me at the
Off-put. It
time.
was off-put, yeah,
At the
to
time, yeah,
to just be this
it seemed,
person that, is
yeah,
somehow a
yeah,
superhero, you know what I mean? When, we're
it's,
artists, we're creators, we're individuals, and we should be proud of that instead of trying to, make it into something, right? Because it doesn't need to be anything than other than, ourselves.
yeah, yeah.
For
That was
sure.
my whole vibe. I felt like I would be, why sell something like art? Why if I make it into a brand or a company, then I'll be selling it. And I'll become like a salesman. And I'm not doing this to become a salesman.
Mhm.
I that would be something else I would do to achieve that. So early on, that was my mentality, 100%, 100%. Um, and then over time, it sort of just started to become a company. It started to become all these things out of necessity. I found it easier to interact with people when I could just give them a plan. They say, hey, I want to promote my music, or hey, I want to help me create this track. And I would have a plan already. And I would say, hey, let's do it like this. Boom, here's a promotion plan. This is what we're going to do. This is what the video's going to come out this date. We're going to do this, this, and this. And after doing that for like years, I kind of realized after talking to record labels, at the same time I'm working with like Universal
Mhm.
and other record labels to help promote their artists and do various things. And I'm seeing the internal workings of those companies, and I'm already doing all the stuff that they do.
Sure.
There's no functional difference. And so at that point, I realized I shouldn't be so closed-minded. I should expand my mind to see if I don't understand the music business, how can I really help these artists? Am I really helping them by getting them all these views and things like that, and making this music? If less and less people are finding it, there's something I could do to make more people find it. Shouldn't I just do that? And so at that point, that's when Amuse hit me up, and Amuse is a Swedish distributor and record label, and they really believed in what I was doing. Like they genuinely they fucked with all the music. They knew what I was about. And I talked to their owners and CEOs and stuff like that, and they were hyped to have me on board because they saw the potential specifically within lo-fi hip hop. They said there's a
Mhm.
lot of these artists, and I don't think they have like a home necessarily. There's a couple small independent labels, but do you think you can help us? Help these artists and provide a home for all these artists and give them solid deals that make sense and all this stuff. And so I took that opportunity to join it with them, and I learned a ton about the music industry. And I learned that the music industry doesn't have to be exploitative. That's a choice that companies make. And so working with them and seeing like, okay, there's no
Looking at
need
them
to,
being like, that's not what I want, that's not what I want to do, especially for these, these other bedroom artists that, like you said, are, making music in incredible ways, very little resources. We got to be able to, find a way to make sure that, they can be successful instead of just giving them a fish, right? We need to teach them,
yeah, yeah,
we need to empower them to keep creating, right? And to not be,
absolutely,
taken advantage of and being, exploited in their own way. And you're still seeing that in a lot of these major record labels. And so I think a lot of gratitude needs to go to you for, you know finally being able to separate yourself, right? Separate yourself and still be able to kind of, take the bananas off the tree and be able to put them in, in a basket and be able to share that wealth. You know what I mean? I think that's really important. My buddy James used to tell me this story when I was a young kid. He was like 7 years older than me, and we're still friends. But we were at dinner one time, and he was telling me about this person who just wants everyone to have more fun. And so the things that
Mm-hmm.
he's kind of doing is like he's engineering cars in a way
Okay.
where it kind of breaks the like speed limit, right? So that you have like a V6 engine, topping 0 to 60 in like 5 seconds, and it's like a minivan.
He's turbocharging anything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And he was like, this person is trying to, make the world more fun and make people like get
Yeah.
places faster. Whether you have an old minivan or an old car, doesn't need to be the newest and coolest thing. You can just do this little trick, and then bam. And if everyone was able to do this, and we'd be able to change speed limits, and we'd be able to like do more exciting things, right? And so that was, something that my buddy James was really drawn to. And I think in the music industry, you're kind of responsible for this kind of thing of like making the world more fun. And I hope that you feel like you're doing the right thing. And with you having such a big platform and having so many views on songs that you've collaborated with and helped with, how does that feel for you? Do you feel like you're still headed in the right direction? I know that you said that you've kind of had a change of mindset, but I hope that that's for the better. What are some of your thoughts on like where you are today versus like maybe where you were or thought you'd be 10 years ago?
I mean, I would say that I mean, I'm satisfied. I would say in the sense of the decisions that I've made. I'm satisfied with the decisions that I've made. I definitely, in my heart, I'm a very competitive person. So, I want to go as big as I can for the sake of, I feel like it would help the most people and just be fun. It's fun to just push and push and push and try to go for a win. But 10 years ago, or 1 year ago, or 5 years ago, or whatever the case, I never, it was never sort of a plan to do this, you know, as a full time, 100% all in situation. That was never the plan because I felt like it was something that I wanted to do. And my mentality was always that, you have your hobbies, you got the shit that you like, and then you got what we call real life. You got the things that you need to do to make money. So yes, I love music, but are you going to be the biggest star, like, or whatever the case? From a practical aspect, well, I need to keep it on the side and then focus on my career, build that up. Which I also enjoyed. I enjoyed my previous career very much. As an engineer and things like that, I love that stuff. But um, that was my mentality. Being big on YouTube is not something that you want to have in your mind a lot because that's a very stressful situation trying to grind and, oh man, did I get,
That's you creating
how
for
many
the
views
wrong
did I get?
things. Mhm.
And everybody falls into that. At some point, every artist or whatever, they're gonna get lost in that sauce of the numbers and the analytics, and it will be the worst thing ever. But I found myself early on in that. The first 2 years of the channel, I had more videos than I had subscribers, right? I think 2 years in, I had maybe 300 subscribers and over 400 videos. You know what I mean? So in my mind, I had already gone through the motions of like, okay, this isn't going to be popping off anytime soon. Should I still do it? If no one sees this video, I come to the point where if no one saw what I did, I was happy still doing it. And I had to get to that point to push forward. So a couple years after that, that's when things started picking up. But in my mind, I never cared to make money on YouTube or these other avenues. I was just like, I want to make some cool shit. I'm gonna be able to talk to artists that I like. That alone is a benefit, right? I can hit up any producer or artist that I fuck with and have a conversation with them. But to me, that's my benefit. That's what I was going for. Having the ear of somebody whose music I respect. Yo, I mean, that's incredible. So I continued to build the channel with that being my primary goal. My job was my job. I love my job, and my goal with the channel was just meet more people and find new music, have a pipeline of constant new music, and that was going pretty well. And then it started going even better, and it kind of continued to spiral where it is what it is today, basically. To keep it short, and my expectation was never to make it full time, but after I went through a couple experiences, it made me realize that there was no reason really not to, right? Like I was sort of in this mix up where I thought I had to do something based on this old philosophy. You have to work this job, you have to do this. But if I really focused on it, I can make money doing this as well. Why don't I apply it to that? Is that so wrong? To do that in a way that is beneficial to yourself and others at the same time. So then I became obsessed with the idea of how do I generate a win-win? How do I help somebody out and help myself out and everybody be happy with it and build up the community at the same time? Like it doesn't have to be zero sum. Somebody doesn't have to lose for me to win, and vice
Totally.
versa. So why don't I just work on solving that problem and then make that my full-time job? And then if I solve that problem, I'll be obviously I'll have no regret within myself because I'll feel accomplished in of myself. Even if I could explain that to somebody, I don't know if I could explain that feeling to somebody, but for me, it would give me that self reassurance. So
And
then
that's
that became
fulfilling. That's really fulfilling, especially as a creator and
yeah,
an
yeah,
artist. And I think that that's something that a lot of people, should strive for because it's positive. It's a very positive thing. It's very lifting and it's
yeah, yeah.
amazing. Yeah. So thank you so much, Ryan Celsius, for joining me. For more information on him, make sure you check out his YouTube channel, which is constantly running music on a 24/7 platform at Ryan Celsius Sound, and also check it out. Also check out his IG at Ryan Celsius. Thank you so much for joining me at OpenDoors.la. I've been your host, Edith Cancula, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.
Find out more on Ryan Celsius on his IG at Ryan.Celsius, and also check out his YouTube at Ryan Celsius Sound, which is playing 24 hours lo-fi music. Nope. Find out more on Ryan Celsius at his YouTube at Ryan. Nope. Find out more on Ryan Celsius at his YouTube channel, Ryan Celsius Sound, which is constantly playing music 24/7 live, and also on his IG at Ryan.Celsius. Thank you so much for joining me at OpenDoors.la. I've been your host, Ethan Cancula, and see you on the next one. Peace.